Everywhere you look, there seem to be suggestions and recommendations on how to manage your anxiety. You'll hear about different coping mechanisms, such as breathing techniques, meditation, stress balls, and exercise, with promises that these things will help alleviate or even eliminate your anxiety. But here's the truth. These are simple coping mechanisms that are not going to give you any lasting relief from severe anxiety. So in today's episode, I'm going to explain why coping mechanisms don't work and give you a more actionable way to approach your anxiety so you can become free of it forever. Let's begin. All right, to be clear, management techniques and coping mechanisms can provide some marginal short-term relief, and they certainly can be a part of a more comprehensive recovery plan like the one I teach. But what I see is that many anxiety sufferers are relying on these coping mechanisms as a way to manage their anxiety. Now, I don't blame them because I was actually in the same position. I did the exact same thing. Here's what happens. Oftentimes, these coping mechanisms are the only way you find to actually deal with your anxiety, because you can read books, watch YouTube videos, and look at forums, and they all seem to have these types of recommendations. It's either this technique or that technique to help manage and deal with your symptoms. I've even had clients that, when they first meet me, explain how they've structured their day around these coping mechanisms. So they'll explain how they wake up and they'll do a deep breathing exercise. Then they'll do 15 minutes of yoga. Then when they go to work, they'll squeeze a stress ball or use a fidget ring throughout the day. At night, they'll do some aromatherapy and have some calming tea to try to help them relax. Now, I'm not saying that these are bad things. They're not. Certainly some of these are good things, and some of them I actually recommend to my clients as they work through the recovery process. But the reality is that these things alone aren't going to allow you to overcome your anxiety and get back to living a normal life that is completely free from anxiety. The reason that these techniques won't allow that is because these techniques are geared towards managing anxiety, not overcoming it. That brings me to one of the most common misconceptions about anxiety, that anxiety simply needs to be managed. To be honest, when I had anxiety, I fell into this same trap. For the longest time, all I could find was these management techniques, and I started to believe that there was no cure to my anxiety. So I needed to try to find ways to just manage it and live with it. So I played with fidget rings at work, I did deep breathing exercises when I felt really anxious, and I took all sorts of types of supplements. I tried pretty much everything that I could to help reduce my anxiety and make it more manageable. I even remember trying to breathe into a brown paper bag when I was having a panic attack, which seems a bit ridiculous now. Of course, none of these things that I tried provided any measurable relief. The reason for that is because these coping mechanisms and management techniques don't address the actual problem. When you are suffering from severe anxiety and you have panic attacks, heart palpitations, derealization, and any other number of symptoms, there is no amount of breathing techniques or squeezing of stress balls that's going to allow you to get rid of that anxiety. Because when you have severe anxiety, your nervous system has been thrown into a state where it is overactive and it is sensitized. It is reacting as if you're constantly being threatened or you're in danger, and it's engaging your fight or flight response. This in turn floods your body with excess adrenaline and stress hormones, and it's creating all the anxiety and strange sensations that you're experiencing. So the bottom line is these coping strategies don't address this root cause of your anxiety. Coping strategies don't actually work to desensitize your nervous system and get it back to a place where it's operating normally. When you have anxiety, what happens is you become fearful of the anxiety itself. Like with me, for instance, I was scared of all the anxious sensations, the panic attacks, the derealization, and everything else. All these sensations felt harmful and dangerous. So I was terribly afraid of them. Now, what that fear signals is that you're in danger. It's telling your brain that you're in danger, that anxiety is harmful, and that I need to protect myself. So my body was responding by engaging my fight or flight response. Well, what did that do? Well, in turn, it just made my anxiety sensations worse. It's this vicious trap where you experience anxiety, you become fearful, and that causes your body to release more adrenaline and stress hormones, making your anxiety even worse. So what I did was I developed a system that I call the fearless approach. The fearless approach is an actionable way to respond to anxiety each and every time it shows up. At the core of the fearless approach is step number 2, called surrender to your anxiety. When you surrender to anxiety, you are allowing anxiety in without any fear and resistance. You are allowing anxiety to do whatever it wants. By surrendering to anxiety in this way, what you're doing is you're sending a crystal clear message to your brain that no threat is present and that it doesn't need to go on the defensive. Surrendering to your anxiety works by allowing you to slow down and see anxiety for what it is: natural bodily sensations and nothing more. As this happens, you gradually lose your fear of anxiety and you exit this anxiety trap. The intense sensations that previously felt dangerous or threatening now just feel like plain sensations. Like anything that you are fearful of, it does take a bit of time to actually lose your fear of it. So it's going to take a bit of time to actually lose your fear of anxiety. But once you do, everything changes. When you are no longer afraid of your anxiety, it marks a monumental step in the recovery process, and you will be well on your way to desensitizing your nervous system and fully recovering from your anxiety. Now, to get more information on the fearless approach and the recovery process in general, make sure you download the 5-step cure to anxiety and panic attacks that I put in the link below. That's going to break down the recovery process, and it's going to show you the exact path that I take my clients through to reach a full recovery. If you enjoyed this episode, do me a huge favor and hit the like button and subscribe button. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you on the next episode.